Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Long-term viewers will know we've talked about the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital before. A hospital plagued with problems, both physical and sort of managerial. There's all sorts of issues with it. Well, it was brought to my attention first by long-term friend of the channel, Leslie Roberts. She came on, she was talking about it, and also in the greater Glasgow and Clyde NHS, the problems all around that. But when we're talking about this, Leslie gave me contacts. I spoke to people who've had them on, phone calls and Zooms, of people involved in the sort of the construction side of things, and how they knew, even during construction, that there was issues. There was water issues, there was cleanliness issues, there was infection issues, fungal infections and things like that, all riddled through this hospital. And yet everybody connived to keep it hidden because they needed the hospital open. And it was open and it was fine until people started dying, and one of whom was Milly Main, a young 10-year-old girl who was being treated for cancer, a cancer she was expected to survive, but she died. But she died not of the cancer, but of an infection, a waterborne infection that everybody knew in advance was there. Well, something's happened. There's an update to this story. I'm going to ask you at this point, do please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. You do not want to miss this. This is going to be an ongoing story. You do not want to miss what's about to happen. It's never happened before. It's a first in Scottish legal history, and it is stunning. So hold on to your hats, and we'll go through this tale now. Here goes. So NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde are named as a suspect in a homicide probe over tragic Milly Main's death. Milly Main's death is now going to be investigated not as a hospital infection or some kind of, oh dear, we didn't know, anything like that. They're now probing this as murder. NHS Glasgow and Clyde is now likely to face charges of corporate homicide after the death of 10-year-old Milly Main. And there's wee Milly there. Scotland's largest health board are likely to face corporate homicide charges. Now, not manslaughter, corporate homicide, corporate murder. And this is into the deaths of 3 children and an adult. The Sunday Mail can reveal. The NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde have been named as a formal suspect in a criminal investigation, which could lead to the first ever prosecution of its kind in Scotland, where you're prosecuting an organisation, in this case, Greater Glasgow and Clyde NHS. It means that the Greater Glasgow and Clyde NHS will be the one responsible. But it goes beyond that, because it isn't just the hospital that will be punished. The board, the civil servants, all the way up, even to the minister, can be brought in on this and prosecuted individually. People can go to jail. That would be stunning and honestly brilliant, because it will concentrate the minds of everyone else. They know they can no longer screw around, not do their job, not be incompetent, not when they know that at the end of it there's a jail cell if they get it wrong. One of the 4 patients involved is 10-year-old schoolgirl Milly Main, who was treated at the troubled Queen Elizabeth University Hospital campus for cancer and contracted a water-based infection that has been linked to issues within the building. Now, this, of course, we've had the people on. I've said before, we've had the people on. We've talked about this. They knew about the various. There was fungal infections. There was water problems. There was egress problems. They weren't capable of boiling the water to beat the Legionnaires. They had problems with that. They'd put in and refit all sorts of stuff there. It was just been an absolute, for the want of a better word, shit show from the day one when they broke ground. And where they were breaking ground wasn't brilliant either, but that's a separate video. Anyway, last night, Milly's mum, Kimberly Darroch, said, "I've been told about this development and we believe it's a step in the right direction, and we are taking time as a family to reflect on it." If you're the family of Milly Main, if you're Milly Main's family and you're seeing that there are somebody may well finally be brought to book over the problems caused by a hospital, that everyone knew the problems were there, and that this should have been remedied at an earlier stage, then I think that they will be, not relieved is not the right word, they'll be satisfied that justice will be done, I think. Anyway, Kimberly from Lanark previously told a public inquiry her daughter's death was murder. And if the health board are found guilty in a jury trial, the board faces an unlimited fine in what would be the first prosecution of its kind in Scotland. And it could also open the door for individual bosses and senior staff to be prosecuted. Milly and 3 other patients who died at the hospital were a 73-year-old, a 3-year-old baby boy, and an unnamed 10-year-old boy. All were receiving treatment for cancer at the QEUH campus when they contracted rare infections and died. Milly was diagnosed with leukemia in 2012, and died on August 31st, 2017, after contracting Stenotrophomonas, a bacteria found in water. Kimberly, 39, said she hadn't been aware of the infection, which contributed to Milly's death, until after she died. And a review found later that the infection was likely linked to the hospital and stated, based on information available to us, we considered that this infection was probably related to the hospital environment. Now, we had the guys on, and they were saying at the time that this was all known about. They knew in advance that these things could happen. They knew in advance that there was problems. They knew in advance of basically infections running rife in the hospital because of the way it was constructed. They were putting the wrong type of water pipe in. They were putting the wrong type of AC unit piping in. There was all sorts of problems. We had the guy on telling us that there was dead pigeons in the system, for heaven's sake. These would be blowing air. This is in the AC unit, and there's dead pigeons there. Nobody fished them out or anything. And so dead pigeons were rotting, and this was going out all over the hospital. Is it any wonder? Police have been investigating the death since 2021, and a public inquiry is ongoing into major infection problems linked to the construction of the £842 million Glasgow hospital, which opened ahead of schedule in 2015. Perhaps it should have opened slightly later and got all the problems with it sorted out first. Now, of course, this is the hospital, and there's actually just noticed that there's a picture there. There's Louise Lawrence in the in the background. That's Anasawa, Kimberly's mother, and then Louise Lawrence in the background. Now, of course, Louise Lawrence, her husband Andrew, went in. He died, and basically there's the big cover up there. And we did the story the other day that Louise still has Andrew's laptop with all the messages, perhaps, hopefully, on from all the communications at the time. And that is very worrying, of course, for Nippy and Jean Freeman. The Shipman sisters will be shitting themselves if what's on there is what they think is on there, put it that way. But of course, Louise, she was raising a furore as well with the hospital, and they actually employed private investigators, and I've done the background on that, I've done the story on that, where the hospital was spending thousands and thousands of pounds hiring private investigators to investigate Louise Lawrence, rather than using the money, to treat people, which is what you expect. Anyway, moving on. Scottish Labour leader Anna Sowell said the full force of the law must now be brought in to ensure nobody else, including the family of Milly, suffers. He said it's taken 4 years to get this far, and what Kimberly has been told by the police could mean we're now one step closer to getting justice for Milly. I would love to see them all arrested, tried and convicted. I would love to see them all do and get 20 years. 20 years for whatever they've done. Not only would it be justice for Milly, but it would act as a warning to all the others. And it is just one of those wonderful, wonderful things that could change everything going forward. Anyway, throughout this entire ordeal, this is Anasawa continuing, throughout this entire ordeal, Kimberly and all those who lost loved ones have shown extraordinary courage, while the health board engaged in denial and cover-up. To this day, nobody has held account for what went so tragically wrong. He said, and I have long argued this scandal occurred in the private. Had it occurred in the private sector, there would have been a criminal investigation. And I hope the full force of the law is used so that no family ever again has to go through what Milly's family have been through. It doesn't matter that this is not a private organisation. It still should have a criminal investigation, and people must be held responsible, and someone has to go to jail, and preferably lots of someones. Ian Moyer, solicitor and partner at law firm Moyer and Sweeney, said the move to label GGC as a suspect was unprecedented. He said this is an unlikely step and it would be... Sorry, I'll read that again because reading is hard. He said it is unlikely this step would be taken unless the police felt they had grounds to pursue the case. A corporate homicide prosecution is not something that has been seen often at all. It's a very unusual step. It's very rarely used, and I don't think it's ever been used in Scotland. So that gives you some idea of the significance of the step that's been taken, and it's not something that authorities will do lightly. First time it's ever been used in Scotland. There'll be people in that hospital very, very worried. There'll be people who've, you know, in senior positions, in civil servants, possibly even ministers, who will be very, very worried. Good. Moyer said that if the health board was found guilty of corporate homicide, it means prosecutions against the individual bosses or staff. Prosecutors wouldn't necessarily have to wait for a conviction to happen either. If, in the course of preparation for any trial and for this charge, it becomes apparent they want to charge individuals, they wouldn't need to wait for a conviction to do that. Evidence may become available that could justify those individual proceedings. Well, it'll be cracking, wouldn't it? And you want to see this go all the way up to the top. All the way up, including Sturgeon. There's possibly room for that if she knew. A Police Scotland spokesman said the Crown and Procurator Fiscal Service asked Police Scotland to investigate a number of deaths at the QEUH. Our investigation is ongoing and it would be inappropriate to comment further. A Crown Office spokesman said she was unable to comment on communication with families of live investigations. It's going to be fairly big, isn't it? It's going to be massive. Anyway, whistleblowers raised concerns about the construction of the hospital, and Freeman halted the opening of a children's facility in Edinburgh on the back of the Glasgow scandal in 2019. They knew. They all knew. The inquiry started in 2020, looking at the construction of both hospitals, and will restart hearings at the Glasgow site next year. Sunday Mail revealed that staff were warned not to hand over documents to the police if they were interviewed as part of the probe. We've covered that story as well. You were told don't hand over anything. Cover it up. Hide it. Staff were told that by management. What have the management got to fear that they're telling staff, don't tell anyone anything, keep it quiet, keep it still, we don't want to go to prison? Anyway, a frequently asked questions document prepared for employees advised them not to take notes or documents to interviews in case they were seized by officers. Shady as hell, isn't it? It goes to show that they are so scared. Don't tell the police. Don't give the police anything. Hide everything. Don't let them know. Mustn't find out. Keep it quiet. Please, please, please keep it quiet. We don't want to go to prison for 30 years for murder. The NHS in Scotland after 17 years of SNP rule. Coming up. I do hope this goes through. I do hope they prosecute and jail a lot of people. As Voltaire put it, pour encourager les autres. It encourages the others. Of course, he was talking about Admiral Byng being executed for losing a battle. It encouraged the other admirals. Well, if you start jailing these people because of this, it certainly will encourage others to do their job properly. And especially if one of those jailed, at least one of those jailed, was a senior politician. The others would certainly be more encouraged to do their job properly and less encouraged to continue with the lies, the spin, the cover-up and the sheer ineptitude and corruption that the SNP has become renowned for. I'm just going to stop there because I think it's great news and I don't want to spoil it by saying anything else. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and we're one step closer to sanity. Goodbye.